The John Anik and Kenny Florian Podcast. John Anik and Kenny Florian.
I love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole. There are a couple of absolutely self-involved bull artists.
Here are your hosts, John Anik and Kenny Florian.
Headshot, bang. Oh, done.
Well, if Ken Flo did not like you, Brian Petrie, there's just no way we'd be going triple box off the top of the show. It's great to have everybody with us. It is episode 387 of the Anik and Florian podcast presented by DraftKings. So we're getting with you a little bit later in the week. And, you know, a lot of the Big Gun Brian Petrie fans, they want you on Sunday or Monday. But I don't know what to tell folks. We're getting our Petrie dish a little bit later in the week now.
That's right. Helps me with the line, so let's do it.
Well, there you go. All right, so a couple things that I want to get to off the top with you boys, and then we will get into our UFC 284 selections. Also coming up, SevereMMA's Seán Sheehan in the back end of the program. A lot of interesting things to get to with Mr. Sheehan. But I just wanted to begin with Francis Ngannou. You know, Ken Flo's being quoted talking about some of these PFL heavyweights and how they might fare were Francis Ngannou to step into that heavyweight division. So, Brian, I'll start with you, and then we'll transition to the former three-time UFC title challenger, Kenny Florian. Fucking never gets old, right? Just fought for the UFC title 3 times, motherfucker.
Casual.
You know,
it's a casual. Just casually.
So Francis Ngannou may compete in boxing. There are going to be options. His next fight might be in mixed martial arts. But Brian Petrie, as disappointed as I am that I'm not going to see him fight Stipe Miocic or John Jones or Cyril Gane again, what are your thoughts on Ngannou in boxing versus mixed martial arts? And ultimately, what are you most excited to see?
So I'm a fan of both sports, and I don't want to see him. I mean, listen, I will watch, but I don't want to. Tyson Fury would butcher Francis Ngannou. It's just as simple as that. Francis has big power, but if you look at the technique, you look at his movement, you look at all these things that boxing is so different, he gets butchered. He gets butchered by Deontay Wilder, who's not the best boxer. He's more of a power guy. You know, Anthony Joshua, there's big names out there. I don't want to see it. I think he needs to stick to MMA. I know that was one of the big sticking clauses, at least the rumors were, hey, I want to box too. I don't want to just be an MMA guy. Getting a little older, I want the big payday, which is fine. Get your money, get paid. But I think it's really going to hurt his legacy. I think, you know, listen, there's power and then there's technique. And I just think he has one of those. I think his technique is lacking, at least on the boxing side. And that's just my humble opinion. I'll let Ken Flo maybe discuss a little further.
Yeah, no, Brian, I think you're right. Listen, maybe this is a poor analogy, but I would compare it to, you know, let's say you get a triathlete to a marathon runner or a swimmer, you know, to take a triathlete, no matter how good they are, and say, okay, well, we're going to put you against the best swimmer, long distance swimmer. We're going to put you against the best long distance runner. It's not quite what they do. They are specialists for a reason. And when you're talking about Tyson Fury, 6'7", a guy who knows how to move, tremendous footwork, he's got a chin from hell. I don't love that matchup. However, I think I do love the payday for Francis Ngannou. If that goes down, you got to imagine that's why he's doing it. That is life-changing money, the same way that Conor McGregor took that fight against Floyd Mayweather. So, yeah, it would be great to see Francis Ngannou get that payday. I would prefer to see him in a mixed martial arts setting. Yeah. However, that's probably a payday that very few fighters would be able to turn down.
Yeah. So Brian Petrie, DraftKings Sportsbook is now live in the state of Ohio, which means that you can get really out of control on that application, right? You don't even have to cross state lines. Like, if you already bet on the Super Bowl or no?
No, I have not. I mean, listen, I got freaking hammered last night on the fights. I was awful on pretty much everything, but I have not bet on the Super Bowl. It's the Eagles versus the refs, right? The Eagles versus the refs, not the Chiefs. The refs are playing, right? Nah, as the Cincinnati guy, I had to take a dig there. No, listen,
we actually haven't talked to you since your Cincinnati Bengals were wronged yet again. I mean, what the fuck, man?
It was brutal. Listen, I grew up in the 90s, so I'm surrounded by miserable Bengals fans. Everyone jumped ship. There's so many Cowboys, Steelers fans. I stayed true. My real dad was a Packers fan. I said, fuck you. I'm ride or die Jeff Blake here in the Bengals. So it's nice to have a team that you can be really proud of. So I'm diehard with them, and I'm very positive, but the reffing was suspect for sure. But with that being said, cooler heads have prevailed. We did have the ball with 2:30 left, driving down the field. We did hit a 3rd and 16 with Hayden Hurst to get a first down. We were about halfway through, and we stalled. We could have won the game. We could have iced the game. We gave them back. So, I'm just happy. I mean, we went to the fucking Super Bowl last year. I hate being one of these guys because I'm very upset that we lost. Went to the Super Bowl last year, almost went again this year. We got a franchise quarterback that we're going to pay in the offseason. I mean, to be a Bengals fan right now, it's pretty goddamn good. So I can't complain too much. But there were some calls in there that were a little skeptical for me.
At least for me, and I'm not referencing when the Patriots were in the Super Bowl in 1986 and 1996, but I believe it was 9 Super Bowls with Tom Brady. They go 6-3. But man, every opportunity, you got to make the most of it, bro. Like I don't want to be downtrodden, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying that you sound like a happy to be here at all, but like, dude, you got to fucking close the show, right? Like this loss is going to sting until the Joe Burrow Bengals break through, and I hope for your sake that they do.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, as soon as we are done taping this episode, I am off to Perth, Western Australia for this championship doubleheader, UFC 284. I know y'all are going to be watching, but why not get in on the action as well with DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC, and new customers can bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Can Volkanovski make history as an Aussie double champ? Or will the lightweight king Islam Makhachev reign supreme? A little bit closer on the money line for the interim featherweight title fight, Yair Rodriguez versus Josh Emmett, and another bettable fight as well. Perhaps you like Perth's own oncoming force, Jack Della Maddalena, or his opponent, the surging underdog, the Jamaican-American Randy Rude Boy Brown. Of course, if the Octagon excitement is not enough for you, not a problem. Football fans, don't forget you can join the big game action this Sunday at DraftKings Sportsbook. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code AFPOD. New customers bet $5 on UFC 284 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly this Saturday at DraftKings Sportsbook with code AFPOD. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right, real quickly, folks, call it a PSA, public service announcement. It's the pronunciation of the week. We're going to call on our executive producer, Cody Merrow. You've heard me say this man's name already today. You heard me just say it in the DraftKings Sportsbook commercial. But it's Islam, and he's fighting Volkanovski, and his name is often mispronounced. So a few days out from the title fight. Cody, what do you have for us on the undisputed UFC lightweight champion?
So I'm going to voice a god you here on this one, and I'm going to go with Islam Makhachev.
Yeah, I mean, that's 2-0 out of the chute for you. Let's hear him say it, but that's a win.
Let's go.
Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev.
So ultimately, folks, what we're really looking for is correct syllabic emphasis, right? So yeah, you could say it's Islam, but ultimately, as long as we're all emphasizing the right syllable, right? Like you can say Alex Pereira or Pereira. I don't care if you roll the R's. No one sounds as good as Kenflo, right? But ultimately, we're trying to hit Makhachev and hit that second syllable. So Islam Makhachev is the lightweight champion. Nicely done, Cody. We'll get your Super Bowl pick later in the program. By the way, Brian Petrie, who do you like in the Super Bowl? 1.5, I believe, right now. Philly over Kansas City. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't root for the Chiefs. Give me the Eagles. Give me the Eagles. Right. I know Philly's your favorite town, John, but give me the Eagles.
Yeah, no, I don't like Philadelphia. Me and Bilal Muhammad will never be welcome back in the city of Philadelphia. Pittsburgh, incidentally, is America's most underrated city. But yeah, I don't think Bilal and I. Can you imagine if there's like a UFC event in Philly? I mean, they ain't trotting Bilal out there. There's no way. All right, so let us update the standings. I know Brian Petrie's had a little bit of a challenging week all around. He's been under the weather. As far as your picks here, so you hit on Marcin Tybura, but you did also have Derek Lewis plus 195. Yeah. And did you go 3 units on the mixed martial artist formerly known as Da Un Jung, who is now Da Woon Jung?
First off, I didn't know about the name change, so I think I like it. That's an ass. I'm just kidding. I did. I went 3 full units on it, and man, I was watching that fight after the first round when Devin Clark did not slow down. I'm like, I'm fucked. I'm fucked here.
All right, so that was a bet at minus 215, 3 units, so it's minus $645. That's your total for the week. Kenflo on the other side hits on Marcin Tybura. Now, you also missed on Da Woon Jung at minus 215, but only 1 unit. And Kenflo, pulling out the Dover, Massachusetts testicles. He goes a 3-unit play on Sergey Spivak, $690 bet that yields 300. And just like that, Ken Flo plus 185 for the week. Now plus $70 on the year. Petrie falls to minus 210 on the year. Is that right, BP?
Yeah. If you say so, it's all right.
Trust me.
I've been in bigger holes. We're okay. I got a big ladder. We'll get out of this.
So I actually did make an initial error on the mathematics. I had only charged Kenny $100 for Da-Un Jung and then corrected myself minus 215, but Ken Flo still wins it. And he takes it the lead now, plus 70 to minus 210 on the year as we come up on UFC 284, Makhachev versus Volkanovski. The first fight for us going to be your featured prelim. Tyson Pedro minus 240, Modestas Bukauskas plus 200. Brian Petrie, lead the dance.
Yeah, I've been high on Tyson Pedro. He missed a ton of time with some injuries and a lot of things going on in his life, but they've really done him some favors coming back. You know what I mean? And they gave him Ike Villanueva and they gave him my old boy Harry Hunsucker, and he's looked like he's buzzsawed right through him. He's looked great. And then Bukauskas, the lasting memory I have in him was the knee blowout against Khalil Rountree, which is devastating. But since then, he's got 2 wins, coming off a knockout win. I believe this is on short notice. And, I know Bukauskas went 1-3 in the UFC, not the most impressive wins in the world, but he scares me a little bit here. I'm a little uneasy because Pedro has, before the injury, he had some cardio issues. I mean, he lost a Shogun. He had some real bad issues coming before the injury. And hopefully he's grown up and matured and has done things. He's looked great against a Harry Hunsucker. But Bukauskas, same size, same style, very hard to kind of predict what he's done. So I'm very uneasy on this. I understand the line. Someone pranked me earlier this week. I fell for a Twitter trap. Someone said Tyson Pedro open as a minus 1,000 and about blew my head. I was like, what? No, hammer Bukauskas. But I'm going to stick with Pedro because I do think Tyson Pedro, I do think he's a better fighter. He's very good on the ground. His striking's coming a long way. He seems to be kind of clicking right now, but I'm uneasy, boys. I'm uneasy. I'm staying away from this one. Give me Pedro by decision.
And you're right to sort of acknowledge the physicality of Modestas Bukauskas, who came back from that bad injury sustained against Khalil Rountree Jr. Now, Kenny, he was cut by the UFC after that loss. Mm-hmm. It was his 3rd in a row. Some thought it was heartless, but goes and gets 2 wins under the Cage Warriors banner and gets a short notice opportunity relatively here against Tyson Pedro. Your thoughts on this one here at 205 pounds?
Yeah, I think Bukauskas is a good fighter. I think I'm still waiting for that win that tells me, okay, this is a guy that can stay in the UFC for a long time. I think Tyson Pedro has some skills that stand out that really can kind of allow him to get a win here in this fight. I just think he's going to hit a little bit harder. I think he's faced a higher level of competition, and for that reason, I'm going with Pedro as well.
Longest pro win for Tyson Pedro, 4 minutes and 55 seconds. Probably could have used a little bit more than the 65 seconds of octagon time accrued last August against your boy Harry Hunsucker Jr. All right, pay-per-view main card opener. Also at 205 pounds, Jimmy Crute, the fucking Bendigo Bomber, minus 230. Alonzo Menifield is plus 195. Crute's last win came in October of 2020. He did not compete at all last year. Menifield on the other side, Bri, kind of on the rise, right? Unranked right now, but closes out 2022 with back-to-back stoppage wins. This is a big fight. Who do you have?
It's a fun one, boys. This is a banger right here. Listen, Menifield kind of got the red carpet laid out for him after the Contender Series a little bit. He got a little bit of the sugar show treatment and then failed expectations just a little bit. I think it's more of a mental thing. I think physically, I mean, listen, when the guy pops his shirt off, we all know what the fuck we're talking about. And the guy's a real deal. Athletically great. He's got a great head coach, but mentally, I think it's just he needs to know that he's the killer that he's in there. He butchered that fraud Askar Morozov. I don't even know if that's that guy's real name anymore. He lied about everything, which is a whole nother thing. And then he played bully ball with Serkinov, right? This guy's got big power, and he's starting to round out his game. Cardio is obviously an issue because of all the muscles. Then you enter Jimmy Crute, who I've been on the wrong side every which way. I played him big, lost, faded him, lost. I can't get this guy right. He's coming off a knockout over Sweet Dreams Hill, which is who cares, right? That's the world champion in the world. That guy's a champ. But it's the way he did it, right? He's like, hey, you're going to punch me in the face, I'm going to punch you in the face. Jimmy Crute's best ability is to get the fight to the ground, get on top of you, work some chokes. He's got a great Kimura. He's got several wins by Kimura. That's his game. And I feel like the Anthony Smith fight where, he blew his leg out a little bit with the nerve kick in the Jamal Hill fight, he didn't do that. He needs to get back to that. Well, could he do that against Menifield? Possibly, if he fights smart. We're an Aussie. You know, they're going to be chanting them. They're going to be going crazy. We're going to be banging it out. And if you're giving me a bang 'em out type fight, I'm going plus 195 Alonzo Menifield. Give me the dog by KO. Sorry, Aussie fans. That's just too good of a number, man.
So it seems as though Ken Flo for Alonzo Menifield, he's going once again with just Patrick Joseph Barry in his corner. So just going with Pat Barry as the sole corner man. Menifield 35, Jimmy Crute 27. I'm not sure if that factors into the handicap at all, but I know a lot of sharps sort of begin with age and build their handicap around that. Ken Flo, Jimmy Crute, Alonzo Menifield will need a selection, not now, but right now. You're muted.
These two are very similar fighters. Both jacked, both short, stocky, powerful guys. And both guys who I think have way more potential than what we've seen. I think both have a tendency also of making some poor decisions during the fight. So to me, if even odds, I'm going with Crute, but because Menifield is an underdog here, I got to go with Alonzo Menifield as well. I think he's got a shot. I think they're both going to be trading, and both have a chance because of it. And I agree. I think the easiest path to victory is for Jimmy Crute to take this fight to the ground. He's going to have an advantage on the ground, no question about it. Will he do that? I don't know. Fighting in your home country or in your hometown or whatever it is can be a blessing and a curse. And to me, Jimmy Crute hasn't shown the composure necessary to consistently win fights, in my opinion. I think he's got a ton of potential. But I think the odds here with Menifield are a little too juicy. So I'm going with Menifield.
That Jimmy Crute is an absolute bull, though, huh? Is he not?
He is, man.
Yeah. Easy guy to root for with the mullet and everything else. Menifield, easy guy to root for as well, has had a lot of adversity to overcome in his personal life. So big fight there to kick off the pay-per-view. Now we move along to the heavyweights. Justin Badman Tafa minus 140, Parker Porter plus 120. So Porter submitted by the aforementioned Jailton Malhadinho Almeida in what was a non-competitive fight last May. He had won 3 straight prior, though, Bri. I didn't know that. Here he draws Justin Tafa, born in New Zealand, but reps Brisbane, Australia. Your thoughts on the heavies, BP?
So I've said this multiple times. Parker Porter, I know you're watching, right? The minute your career is over, open a steakhouse. Call it Parker Porter Steakhouse. It's the best name. It's right there for you, man. It's perfect. With that being said, like, we got two dudes with a lot of meat on their bones right here, and they both have different styles. Parker Porter wants to get the fight to the ground. 4 of his 7 losses come by knockout, right? He likes being on top. He likes putting that pressure on you. He's got huge legs. Not the tallest guy in the division, but he's obviously thick. Tafa, big power, explosive, deceiving athletic. He's very quick in there. He's got some good shots, but far from comfortable off his back. Excuse me. Parker puts him there. It's a problem. Keeping it short and sweet. Plus 120. Give me Parker Porter. Stakes on Parker after the fight.
Ken Flo, Parker Porter is plus 120 against Justin Tafa, minus 140. Tafa comes from a fighting family of strikers, somewhat underwhelming, 2-3 in the UFC thus far. You aligned with BP? You going with Parker Porter, or do you like Justin Tafa?
I am aligned with him. I'm a little disappointed he went with him, but yeah, I think that for Tafa, I think he's probably the more dangerous striker, but I think Parker Porter will find a way to get this into some grappling exchanges, and that's where he wins this fight. I think he has good enough striking where he can set up his entries, get there safely. It would concern me if he decided to just start throwing down with Tafa, because I think that's where Tafa can win this fight. But again, having those odds plus 120, give me Parker Porter as well.
All right, next up we get to a featured bout at 170 pounds, and seemingly money continues to pour in on Perth's own Jack Della Maddalena, minus 325. Randy Brown, despite the 4-fight winning streak, has swelled to a plus 270 underdog, and essentially, Sportsbook's got to respond, Bri, right? I mean, when we sent out the odds for the show, Jack Della Maddalena was minus 300, now minus 3.25. 3-0 in the UFC, all in 2022, but a definite step up here for Jack Della Maddalena. Brian Petrie. Don't worry, Ken Flo's leading the last 2 fights, but
no, we're good. We're good. Listen, Ken's got to close the show. He's got to clean up my mess I make. Listen, I know it's only 2 names, but I call him Jackie 3 names. This guy is really high on my list of guys I'm looking out for. I mean, his confidence in the pocket, just everything's effortless. I mean, it truly, truly is. And this is a perfect fight for him because Randy Brown is feeling himself right now. Randy Brown is on a 4-fight win streak, and he is loaded with confidence. He's starting to find his groove on the feet. He's 6'3", he's tall, he's lanky, has a little bit of a chin issue. His defense is starting to get better, but there's still a little bit of chin issue. And then against his last performance against Grandpa Trinaldo, Grandpa T out there, it was a lackluster performance to me. You know, out of his 4 wins, only one is by finish. I want to see a little more when you're 32 years old and you're a rising star, or you're at least getting that bubble treatment. And this is such a good fight for Jack because now we get to know what he really is about. Randy Brown can take you down. Randy Brown is the bigger guy here. Randy Brown can stay at distance and piece you up. How good is Jack Della Maddalena? I think he's pretty goddamn good. I'm going Jack Della Maddalena, but I think by KO as well. I think he's gonna touch Brown to the body, slow him down, third round, late second, third round, slow him down, TKO and KO. The number's way too high. This was circle locked, right? I got to be careful now. I'm down some units, right? I got to be careful where I throw my locks around. So this is going to be not a lock for me, but pretty close to a lock. It's just a little high for me. But give me Della Maddalena by KO.
It's a little bit tricky with the price. I think largely it is rooted in something you touched on. Jack Della Maddalena, more prolific finisher in this equation, right? A lot of UFC experience for Randy Brown, 10 UFC wins, but seemingly, Kenny, at least to this point of the week, not something that people seemingly are backing at the window. Jack Della Maddalena here at home, huge pop when he walks out. What are your thoughts on Randy Brown and Della Maddalena here at welterweight?
And I believe that's going to be a factor in a positive way for someone like JDM here. I think that Randy Brown is a guy that I've been looking at for a very long time. Both of these fighters have so much potential. And the fact that they're facing each other, I think, is just tremendous matchmaking. So props to Sean Shelby and Mick Maynard here. So this is a tough one. From a betting perspective, this is almost as challenging as the main event here for me because I think Randy Brown can get it done with his length and his fight IQ. However, I've been kind of waiting to see even more from him. We've seen flashes of brilliance out of him. His last fight, as Brian mentioned, wasn't one of those where I was kind of wowed. I think that was an opportunity for him to wow the fans and kind of look like a star out there. He didn't. And that doesn't bode well for him because he's facing a guy who's a high-pressure fighter who knows how to move off that center line and land shots and angles and really confuse you. The jab is a problem if you don't know how to slip and move and counter. Jack Della Maddalena knows how to do just that. And if he's able to win impressively, or even get a stoppage over someone like Randy Brown, I think there's going to be some big fights in his future, and he's going to be someone who could someone we should be watching, and will fight for the belt in the future. So, awesome fight, but although he's kind of a big favorite here at -300, I like Jack Della Maddalena as well. Give me the Aussie.
If I'm Jack Della Maddalena, I'm having somebody get all of the clips of Kenny Florian talking about me over the last 3 years. I mean, he fucking loves this guy, Jack Della Maddalena. All right, Anik Florian poll question this week. 67.6% of respondents like Yair Rodriguez over Josh Emmett at 32.4% in the UFC's interim featherweight title fight. That will co-headline UFC 284. So let us get to it. Ken Flo, you will lead us off. Co-main event, Yair Rodriguez -155, Josh Emmett +135. Slight movement over the last 48 hours towards Josh Emmett, who, by the way, has a new nickname. Maybe Ken Flo knows this. I don't know, in the crypto space. Written CC0, but pronounced CCO. So he will be Josh CCO Emmett. Ultimately, Kenny, we need to know, does he win the fight? First championship opportunity of any kind for both guys in the UFC, I believe.
Josh Emmett is one of those guys that I really respect in the mixed martial arts space. He has proven his toughness time and time again. He has, just dynamite in his hands, really goes for it. A bit undersized, but always finds a way to at the very least make it competitive. And he's won a lot of tough fights in the octagon. Has that wrestling background as well. I think this is going to be a tough fight for him, though. Yair Rodriguez is lightning fast. I talk about this every single time, and every time I see him fight, I was like, man, this guy moves fast. His kicks, his ability to stay at range, and he's proven himself to be very, very tough. Don't be fooled by the good looks. he's a dog. He knows how to fight. He knows how to come back from adversity. And I think he's underrated as far as his intelligence inside the cage as well. So I think this is a big challenge for him. Emmett has the ability to put anyone to sleep, but I think Rodriguez and his improving skills and the fact that he's young and hungry, I have that going in his favor. I like Yair Rodriguez here. I don't think he gets the finish, but I do see him getting a decision win. Having all that high-level fight experience, I think has put him in this spot in a pretty perfect way. So I think he's set up well here to get the win. But I hate going against Josh because he's kind of always underappreciated and underestimated. But give me Rodriguez.
Nicely done, Ken Flo. Yair Rodriguez had that win on ABC against Brian T. City Ortega due to injury, but caused in large part by Rodriguez. And seemingly, Bri, he respectfully was the man around whom this interim featherweight championship fight was built. Josh Emmett, of course, deservedly getting his first championship opportunity, 5 straight wins, 18-2 overall. I mean, Josh Emmett has had a near perfect MMA career, but the time has got to be now. Brian Petrie, any value on Emmett, or do you like Yair Rodriguez?
I love the fight. And I'm glad you brought that up because, obviously I'm part of the Anik and Florian family, but Kenny was one of the few analysts that said, hey, listen, I know Brian hurt his shoulder, but why did he hurt his shoulder? It's because he got his fucking arm snatched up. Yair was pulling on it, right? So props to Kenny for doing that. I love this fight. And props to Volkanovski for going, you know what? I'm going up. Let these guys fight. I don't want to hold up division. I'll pop down when I'm ready. That's a cool thing to do. That's a dude who's just self-aware and confident in just all his abilities. But this is an absolute banger. Both guys couldn't be more different, in my opinion, right? We got a guy who got pushed right off the Ultimate Fighter, has a whole country behind him, flashy, maybe got rushed a little too soon when you think about it. And Yair Rodriguez. Then you got Emmett, who was just another Faber guy, right? Oh, wrestler from Sacramento, right? And then he gets KO'd by Jeremy Stevens. And everyone's like, yeah. But then he starts KOing everyone else. And dumb people like me can't get over the knockout over Jeremy Stevens. Like, oh, this dude's a real fucking guy here. He can crack. Problem is, he hasn't had a knockout since 2019 when he was 34 years old, right? 37 now. That worries me a little bit. Yes, he's fighting better competition, but he's had opportunities. His timing, his power, everything's beautiful. But that's not going to matter when you get just a guy like Yair Rodriguez. My biggest complaint about Yair Rodriguez is his inconsistency. He doesn't fight enough, right? Emmett gets hurt, misses 9 months almost every time he fights, right? Yair, I don't know if he gets hurt, he sits out, whatever. But when he comes back, he's a better fighter. And he's improved, and you can tell he's improving. He's getting all this in. He's already a special fighter. He's becoming more special. So this was actually a really tough fight for me to pick because I like the number on Emmett and I like Yair Rodriguez, but then it just dawned on me, like, go fucking Rodriguez, nuts on the table. I think a head kick knockout is going to be something I'm going to look forward to. Yair's got really powerful kicks. He knocked out Andre Fili with a really jumping kick. So I'm going to pinpoint a knockout here by Yair Rodriguez. And I'm going to go ahead and give you my mortal lock as well.
Of course,
I'm not going to go crazy. Give me 1 unit, right? Minus 155, 1 unit. That's a perfect, great, nice bet right there. But yeah, I just, for some reason, the more I broke this down, the more confident I got in Yair.
All right, I love it. You guys are getting me excited to actually get on a metal tube for 37 hours door to door. All right, main event, the historic meeting between the lightweight champion Islam Makhachev and the featherweight champ Alexander Volkanovski. Makhachev minus 380 right now. Volkanovski can be had at plus 310. Despite the fact that he is 25-1, 12-0 in the UFC, and has won 22 consecutive fights. Kenny Florian, we need a main event selection. I know that you have sort of waffled, and the price sort of factors prominently in that equation, but we need a selection. Ken Flo, which way are you going?
Oh, man, it's a phenomenal fight. I just watched Alexander Volkanovski's fight against Holloway, and Holloway looks like he towers over him. And I go, oh, no, he's got to deal with Islam Makhachev, a massive lightweight. Like, wow. Like, Islam is huge. He's strong. He has a level of wrestling that you rarely see in mixed martial arts. He's so dominant with that and so elite. He can get you down, and the problem is he can control you. He knows how to keep you down. I don't see him necessarily being a submission threat against Volkanovski. Volkanovski is built like a fire hydrant. He's got T-Rex arm, T-Rex legs. He's got no neck. And I could see him maybe getting a TKO or something like that, or maybe just grinding him down and getting that decision win. But I don't see him finishing him. If he does, I think he's got to do it early, because Volkanovski tends to, like a lot of great fighters, like a lot of intelligent fighters, he analyzes you, he figures you out, and then he picks you apart. And over time, he starts to run away from you. And I think this is what he needs to do against someone like Islam Makhachev. How does he do that against someone who's that big? Does Volkanovski have the power to knock out Islam Makhachev? I don't know. I think it's going to be tough. We have seen Islam Makhachev get knocked out. It was his debut. I believe we called that fight, John. But at this stage of the game, happening with a 145-pounder, I don't think so. I think if someone's going to win here, it's probably going to be by decision. But I think the longer the fight goes, the more it favors Volkanovski. Where it could throw off Islam Makhachev here is the footwork. That's where he needs to get it done. When Makhachev gets his hands on you, it's going to be very difficult for Volkanovski to out-wrestle him there. What he has going for him is the fact that he's short and stocky. It's going to be harder for Makhachev to get underneath that center of gravity. But I think early, I wouldn't be surprised to see Makhachev all over Volkanovski. If Volkanovski is able to, survive those rounds, get back to his feet, and let Makhachev know it's not going to be easy and he's not going to get the submission, that's where I think Volkanovski can start to do some serious work and outpoint someone like Islam Makhachev. If these odds were a little bit closer, I would go with Islam, but I am going to go with Volkanovski. I have underestimated him many times. I think the price is too good for him. I would like to go with Volkanovski, and I think if he's able to survive those first 10 minutes, I think Volkanovski will find a way.
Whew. All right. Alexander Volkanovski plus 310. On the other side, the favorite, perhaps prohibitive favorite, Islam Makhachev, had to win 10 consecutive fights to set up this title fight. I believe he won his UFC debut. Then he was knocked out by Adriano Martins. 10 straight wins. Submits Charles Oliveira in round 2 at UFC 280 back in October in Abu Dhabi to win the title. And his first title defense comes against this all-time great featherweight champion, Alexander Volkanovski. Brian Petrie, Ken Flo has sort of laid out the carpet. He's on the Volkanovski side. Which way are you going?
Is it fucking Saturday yet? Because, man, I'm sweating a little bit here, boys. I'm cold in my house. I'm sweating. I have been on record saying I don't love champ versus champ. I think this is perfect. I want to see this fight. Both guys are so confident. When I watch Alexander Volkanovski speak, even when this fight first got announced, like, yeah, he can maybe take me down, but he can't hold me down. And Islam, all he does is be able to hold people down. It's like, whoa. We have a battle of number 1 pound for pound versus number 2 pound for pound. Styles make matchups. I love it. What I had to do was I had to go back and I had to look at similar fights, right? Volkanovski's fought a couple grapplers, but the one guy he really fought really wrestling heavy base was Chad Mendes. Chad Mendes got him down, and I don't want to get an argument with DC. It could have been a mat return, could not have been a mat return, but Chad Mendes went in there and shot on Volkanovski quite a bit and got him down a little bit. Volkanovski always got back to his feet, got rocked in that fight a little bit by Mendes. And but obviously we all know what happened. Volkanovski put him away. And then you look at the Sarukin fight with Islam. Sarukin, a small, compact guy. Islam took him down. Yes, it was short notice. Maybe Islam wasn't planning for it. But Sarukin got back up to his feet. And the X factor to me is I love this sport. I'm in it. I'm all in. I love jiu-jitsu. I love it. Craig Jones, who Kenny knows, is a phenomenal jiu-jitsu practitioner, and he's really ahead of the game mentally. A lot of jiu-jitsu guys go, no, I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. My jiu-jitsu is better. He's been saying for months, I got to figure out what these Dagestani guys are doing. I got to figure out what these Russians are doing. And that is who Volkanovski's been working with Frank Hickman as well in his camp, which I love. So that just adds another layer to this. But what it boils down to is the X's and O's. I think he got Islam. Could he hold Volkanovski down? Maybe. I don't think Islam can stand with Volkanovski. I know Islam stand up is better than this and that. The footwork, the speed, the timing of Volkanovski, everything is just better. It just is. I'm sorry. But Islam does have the size. So you got to look at that. But when it comes down to it, I'm a fucking gambler. And when you're giving me the number one pound for pound fight in the world at plus 310, you hammer the shit out of it. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm with Kenny here. I think Volk by decision is a gorgeous number. I don't think he can finish Islam because there is a size discrepancy, but man, I love this fight. I've been chewing on it for weeks. I love it.
I love hearing you guys break it down. And it's interesting, right? Volkanovski was as high as, I think, plus 330 on DraftKings Sportsbook, now down to plus 310, right? But in terms of quantifying this upset, if it happens, as one of the biggest in UFC history, it's just not that, right? As great as we think Islam Makhachev is, it's just not that. Now, if Islam Makhachev goes on to become the greatest lightweight champion in UFC history with 5 to 7 title defenses, then maybe, and this is a wash, right? And that maybe predicted early Islam Makhachev domination ends up being the narrative in the fight, then maybe retroactively we say, yeah, you know what? That would have been a pretty big upset if Volkanovski in that form had beaten the lightweight champion. But I don't even think this would be like top 100 upset.
I agree with
you have to hit, not, so, and I understand you guys obviously are asked to make a prediction based upon the betting line, so this is not like a pistol to temple conversation, and they both like Volkanovski at plus 310. One other thing that's interesting, and I know you guys got to go. Well, Kenny's not leaving, but you got to go. Yeah. Volkanovski has one career loss, and it came at 170 pounds as a welterweight. So I think there are a lot of unknowns when it comes to how he'll size up at 55, and we get some answers here in a few days. So, Brian Petrie, what do you got coming up on the MMA Takes podcast?
I'm going live. Usually I take my stuff and edit it. I will be live Wednesday night on MMA Takes podcast on YouTube to break this fight down. It's a big one. I gotta go live. I gotta go have some fun with it. So pop over there Wednesday at 8 p.m. and we'll have some fun. That's it.
At Brian Petrie MMA on social media. Thank you, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.
See you, boys.
See you, dude.
There he is, big gun Brian Petrie. I'm always curious for a guy like that. What's his pay-per-view routine? Now, for you got PFL Challenger Series. You're going back to Orlando, Florida. So you land Saturday morning back at home and something like that. Yeah. Is that right?
Exactly.
So will you be able to stay awake for this pay-per-view? Be honest with me.
So, dude, usually I wrap up past midnight, so I'm exhausted, and I have a coffee before one of the shows, so I don't really go to sleep till 2:30. I wake up 6:30. I got my daughter's birthday on Saturday, so I'll be celebrating Saturday. So I can't really. I hope I can take a nap, but I don't think I'm going to be able to take a nap. So it's going to be. I'm going to be in Struggletown on Saturday, but I like watching it live if I can. So I'm going to do my best to do some kind of cheat nap or something so I can watch it late night.
Well, we always love that hostile Ken Flow on Twitter when he does watch live. It's a little bit harder to tweet. I was going to push out a Sergey Spivak tweet this morning when I was watching it, and it fails to have the same effect. But yes, no, live sporting events, there's nothing quite like it. I understand trying to fight through the pain and watch it live. And a lot of our European and international listeners and viewers, that's their reality 41 or 42 weekends a year. One thing that I want to get to before we get to Seán Sheehan, in terms of the promotion for Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. Some people have bemoaned the fact that maybe Power Slap is getting too much love on the UFC social channels, or just that this fight is not getting the shine that it deserved, either with a world tour or in the preamble leading up to this fight. The only thing I'll say is that we had a pay-per-view in Rio de Janeiro a few weeks ago, and that was the first time we had been to Brazil in 4 years. Now, this is a huge deal. Can't wait to go to Perth, Western Australia, but sometimes this is just the nature of the beast, right? 41 shows a year. If there were 30 shows a year and you had more gaps, it would allow for more time to build these live events, Obviously, I didn't call the fights that happened this past weekend with Derek Lewis and Sergey Spivak, but for some of us, we can't turn the page when it comes to our social and our promotional until we get through that last fight card. So I just thought I would share that. But we're excited to ramp it the fuck up and get to Perth here in a couple of days. But now we do have our man. So joining us for the first time, actually in a long time, he's the host of the SevereMMA podcast, The Sheehan Show on SureDog. On Twitter, you can find him at Seán Sheehan BA. The great Seán Sheehan is with us. Good day, my friend. How are you, sir?
I'm good. It was a long night last night. The main card started at 6 a.m. here, so I was falling asleep during the co-main event and the main event. No, I'm usually pretty good. I'm used to staying up all night, but yeah, that was an extra long one because there was Bellator as well. So yeah, it was a long night, but we got through it. It wasn't too bad.
I'd imagine at some point your significant other intervenes and socially maybe you will watch one of these shows tape delayed, or do you always try to watch them live?
I always try to watch him live. Always. I did recently. I think it was the first card of the year, whichever one that one. My memory shot. And I did watch it. And I woke up the next day and I literally watched the whole card in like an hour. I'm like, why don't I do this all the time? It's the stupidest thing ever. But I just put myself through that pain weekly, and I'm not sure why, honestly. But I'm used to it.
Yeah.
now.
I thought about avoiding spoilers last weekend for Sergey Spivak and Derek Lewis, and then I checked my UFC email, and I knew the result would be in there. But no, I really got to go to UFC Fight Pass and not ESPN Plus, because if I go to ESPN Plus, I see a 12-minute video. I know the main event probably ended in round 1. But it's good to see you. Obviously, you guys at Severe MMA were the first to break the news that Conor McGregor would be coaching on the next season of The Ultimate Fighter. So, I want your thoughts on his decision to do that. I mean, ultimately, I'm more concerned with September and when he competes. But your thoughts on Conor making the decision to be a part of what could really be some great content if he's all in, returning to The Ultimate Fighter.
I think it's a very interesting decision, and I'm more concerned about McGregor getting back to what we know Conor McGregor can be inside the cage than all the content and anything else. And it's funny you mentioned the content, and you mentioned my significant other a minute ago. Yesterday we sat down and we were just watching like YouTube or whatever, and this video came up. I think it was a 24-minute video maybe from BT Sports of McGregor's best moments in the Tough House. And we literally sat there laughing for 24 minutes. It was just like, you almost forget sometimes how hilarious he actually was. So when he gets back into that sort of thing, I think he'll be hilarious again, and people will start to like him again, and people will start to fall in love with him again. So I think it's great for that. But for McGregor himself as a fighter, he said one thing, and he put up that Instagram post, and he was like, I need full immersion. And I think if this can give him full immersion, where he's gone in there and he's training with these guys day in, day out for, week after week and month after month, and then going into his own camp, I think that's exactly what he would need. So it's very hard for him to actually get that anywhere else at any other time, because he's a film, he's whiskey and all this. I don't know if you saw the Rock this year. There was talks of him being in WrestleMania, but he didn't have enough time to get in shape to do his WrestleMania match. And in last year, it was like, am I going to have time at that time? Am I going to be doing a film? Is my tequila going to have something that it's guys like that who are at the very top level, who have businesses inside of their their chosen athletic endeavor, have so many things to actually consider before they can say, yes, I'm going to do this, before they can put enough time into getting back to where they need to get to physically. That's nigh on impossible unless you have something that you're going to say, right, I'm signing up for the next 6 months. It's full immersion, 3 months in tough, 3 months preparing for the fight, and then I'm back. That's exactly what he needs. Like, is that going to work? Is he going to be injury free? Is he going to actually get back to his best? Who knows? But I think it's a good sign. If you're a fan of Conor McGregor as a fighter, that's what you want. He talked about that season before where he had 3 fights in 1 year, and then obviously the pandemic came and all of that. But he knows that himself. The Chandler fight's a tough fight to start with, make no mistake about that. But I think that is possibly a good way of actually doing it.
That is interesting. And I hadn't totally thought about that 6 months of potential Las Vegas immersion. Even if he leaves at times, inevitably there's got to be some value for him, I would think, in having the UFC Performance Institute to whatever degree. I know he's a man with great resources. Real quick, and Kenny, I will let you chime in, just in terms of him as a master articulator and orator, right? As somebody who is paid to talk for a living, right? I don't know that I've ever seen anybody or heard anybody quite like Conor McGregor in terms of his combination for quick wit, comedic timing in the moment. Like, he puts a guy like me who's paid to orate to absolute shame. So I do hope that he is all in, because you're talking about that 20+ minute clip, and dude, like in fucking stitches the whole goddamn time, but he wasn't necessarily all in even for that season. And if he is all in, I look forward to the brilliance. I just want to get that out.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because, like, Irish people wouldn't say what you said there, because I know 10 lads like Conor McGregor, who talk like him and who have the gift of the gab like him. And, I remember there was a friend of mine, he's from Wexford, in the east of Ireland. He's like, Conor McGregor would be light work in that part of the world.
In the verbal setting. That's interesting.
The verbal setting. Yeah. So I suppose it's usual for that. But I also think it's interesting, right? Because in that setting, McGregor had Artem, well, at the time, obviously they were good friends, and a few more of the Irish guys. And, John Kavanagh, I believe, is going to be with him over there. And there's talks of a couple of Irish guys maybe getting into tough. I'm sure McGregor will have a bit of a pull and maybe be able to get a couple of them into the house. When he has Irish people with him, he's always a little bit better because he puts on like a bit of an accent sometimes when he's talking to American people, or when he's just so they can understand him a little bit better. But I did an interview with him last year, and people were saying, it was a great interview. It sounds like the old McGregor, but it's only because he's able to like speak in his own accent, speak the way he does. And maybe it's a small thing to other people, but I think Irish people notice that a lot. And if he is surrounded maybe by his own team, which I think he will be, and if there are a few guys in the house from his team, I think that could also lead to kind of the orator McGregor being back at his best.
Sean, what do you think about the matchup? John posed this question to me earlier in the week. It's at 170 pounds against Michael Chandler, a guy who likes to walk that fine line of being reckless and dangerous. What do you think about the matchup? Is that the right fight for Conor at this stage of his career?
I don't think so. No, I think it's like sometimes we forget, right, that Conor McGregor is a guy who has taken long absences from MMA in boxing. Yeah, he's had big injuries throughout his career. Another one now just coming off of it, and to put him back in against her against someone like Michael Chandler, I think it's too much. I think the Tony Ferguson fight made so much sense. And maybe people say, Tony's lost a lot of fights and he's not what he used to be. Like, McGregor's not what he used to be either, and he's lost a few fights in a row. I think it's fair matchmaking. One of them wins, okay, they go down the line, and one of them wins, they go up the line, and maybe then a Michael Chandler fight would make sense. But you can never question Conor McGregor's balls, I suppose, if you want to put it that way. He came back after the Floyd Mayweather fight and fought Khabib Nurmagomedov in his first fight back. This is a guy who fought in 11 months. We all know that 11-month stretch with the 4 fights. Jose Aldo, Nate Diaz twice, and Eddie Alvarez in 11 months. That stretch, and a loss in the middle of that. And I think a lot of people have this, he fought Dana Seaver and all of that on the way up, and he was babied on the way up. He really fought Max Holloway on the way up, and he's had some very, very tough fights, and he is a guy who will take on all challenges. All the stories you hear about him, turning over in bed and Jose Aldo's out, and he's like, Chad Minna's fine, turn around, went back to sleep. Those are all maybe not necessarily exactly true like that, but he will take on all comers and he'll be happy. But the other big thing is, right, and sometimes people don't like to look at it, say, from the UFC's point of view or from the promotion's point of view. But when you have Conor McGregor, you have to put him into a headlining spot. It has to be a big spot. You can't work McGregor back. You can't put McGregor into even a fight in Ireland here because it's at the wrong time for the pay-per-views, wherever. You can't put him on a fight night headliner, even against someone like a Ferguson or a lower down opponent or opening a card, because he is the greatest star in the history of the sport. McGregor, on his way back, will draw more in the pay-per-view, boys, than anyone else in the sport at the top of their game. So there's a responsibility of the UFC there if they're charging people however much it costs over in America to buy these fights, and it'll cost us here now as well with McGregor. But there's a responsibility to give a big fight that makes sense with a ranked guy like Michael Chandler. So I can understand it from that point of view. I think they should be looking more long-term than that. Look at 3 fights instead of 1 fight, because if he loses here, what are you going to do then? You're maybe going to have to do what I just said and push him back a little bit and give him a bit of easier matchmaking if he wants to fight again. And if you don't give him that now, if he loses that, maybe he won't ever fight again, and then you've lost McGregor. So I think it's a risky one. I'm not sure. If you were to ask me who wins between Conor McGregor at his very best and Michael Chandler at his very best, Conor McGregor wins that fight every day of the week, in my opinion. Same goes for Tony Ferguson and all of that. But Conor McGregor just can't be at his best at the moment. Can the 6 months get him back to his best? Probably not. Can it get him back to somewhere near his best? Hopefully. But that's a big risk to take with the biggest star in the history of the sport. But it'll be interesting to see if he pulls it off. And if he does, well, he's all in then. He's back and he's right up there near the top.
I just wonder what version of Conor it's going to be, right? Because I feel like the spectrum seemingly is pretty wide. But I think the competitor in him will really maximize those 6 months, and we'll see a really good version. I mean, I thought he would be the betting favorite. I know there's a layoff. It's -110 on both sides. Full disclosure, I thought he would be the betting favorite. And at least if he wasn't, I thought he would be bet to that point in time at 170 pounds. We'll ultimately see where it closes. In terms of the timeline, August, September, I mean, is that what your expectation is, that this is going to be about third quarter? We'll see Conor McGregor, and you think we'll see him stateside, yes?
I would say so. It's more than likely going to be Vegas or New York, maybe. One interesting fact, Conor McGregor has a knockout in every month of the year except August. So I wonder, is that like he's a guy who thinks about things like that, and I just wonder, like, let's push it back a couple of weeks from the September card to the August card, get it on that. Maybe that will happen, but it's a big fight. It's something to look forward to. You know, we've so many things out to look forward to in the UFC, with obviously the massive fight coming up, the super fight, and then we've John Jones coming back, and now McGregor as well. So it's great. It's great to have these things to look forward to, and the season of Tough as well. I know a lot of people have fallen out of love with Tough. To be able to look forward to another season of that is very good as well.
And I do want to have one of those other 10 Irish orators on the Anik and Florian podcast to roast me at some point in time, because I don't trot that praise out there casually. I think his ability to react in the moment, and having been in a lot of situations that are verbally challenging myself, I give him a lot of credit. None of the material ever seems scripted to me, but feel free to bring one of those guys at me anytime you want. All right, a few more minutes here with the great Seán Sheehan. So, a few days out from this matchup between Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski, and I think a lot of handicappers like the value on Volk at plus 310, even if this isn't your most natural championship defense against a top 5 lightweight. How do you handicap Alexander Volkanovski's chances, and what is your appetite for this particular matchup?
Oh, I can't wait for this. This is, you know, we spoke about all the other fights. This is a fight that I want to watch the most. I mean, there was a fight always, and maybe it doesn't look as good now as it did at the time, but Cody Garbrandt versus TJ Dillashaw. I remember coming into that, you know, when Cody was after beating Dominic and all of that. I remember just thinking, how does this fight go? Like, there's two such good technical fighters at the time, and obviously a lot of things have changed since, but this is another one to me. It's like, there's no great fanfare around either of them. You know, okay, we have the Habib stuff with Islam and all of that, and Volkanovski, and the fact that they are two of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the world. But I think this is the hardcore fight, funnily enough, when it's even two champions, because the technical ability of both of these guys is so high. And if you're talking about the betting odds, I think it's far too wide as well. Far too wide, because one thing we don't respect enough is like the high level ability of someone like Volkanovski. You know, I've Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson there behind my head, and I will die on the hill that he's the greatest fighter of all time. He's just absolutely brilliant, and I would never compare anyone to him except Volkanovski. Like, he's the first one I've seen, I think, that has reached that level of comfort in the cage where he can just do everything almost without thinking, while staying in the perfect, like, defensive position to put his offense out there. He's just absolutely unbelievable. And it feels sometimes we say, oh, well, this guy's a really good wrestler, he's going to beat everyone. And we ignore the fact that Volkanovski is so exceptional in all areas. And another part as well, and I've said this for a few years now, but I don't think people, like even myself and you, John, Kenny might be a little bit different, or other top level fighters, we don't understand how good Volkanovski is because it's too complicated. He's so good that the eye from outside cannot understand it. I've already done 2 previews for this fight, and I think I could do 10 previews for this fight. I love it so much. But like, for me, looking at it from the outside point of view, I just look at Volkanovski and the way that he can stay like so fundamentally safe in the way he fights while continually changing everything he does. We mentioned the word variation an awful lot in MMA when we're breaking down fights. There's probably no more varied fighter in the world than Volkanovski, yet he can stay in a position where he's defensively sound enough to go in against a guy like Korean Zombie, absolutely take him apart and not get any shots landed on his own face or head himself. It's incredible to do that. And to write a guy like that off, whether it's a price or whether it's Makhachev is definitely going to win, to me is incredible. Now, Makhachev is very, 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 very good and has the size advantage and all of that, but I would never write off Volkanovski. I have so much admiration for him, and that's the big reason. Can his brilliant ability beat the unbelievable wrestling ability and the striking as well of Makhachev? We can't leave that to a side. We don't know, and that's the reason why the fights happen and why we close the cage and John Anik says the fight's about to start, and we sit down and we watch it and we enjoy it. And this is the one I'm looking forward to this year. I cannot wait for it.
I love the way you set that up, and I'm so excited to have a long-form conversation with you that isn't totally rooted in judging and scoring, because you have so much more to offer on that front. Seán Sheehan with us here on the Anik Florian podcast, and I love the Demetrius Johnson comparison, because you're right. Like what Volkanovski's doing, it is beyond my brain wavelength largely in terms of the sophistication of it, but the Demetrius Johnson comparison sort of that crystallizes it for me, right? Just everything slows down for the guy. And you're right. He's able to just fight on instinct because he is just so comfortable in there. All right. A few quickies on the way out, Seán Sheehan. Fact or fiction, Ian Gary at some point will be in the UFC's top 5 at welterweight.
I'll go facts because I might meet him and he'll kill me if I say fiction. Right. So no, I like the one thing about Ian Gary is, right, and I know this is supposed to be quick fire, but I interview a lot of fighters, and almost every single one of them says, I'm going to be champion, I'm going to be the best in the world, I'm already the best in the world, and he says that as well. Don't make no mistake about it. But he also, from very early in his career, has said that I need to improve. I need to hit this target to get to here. And I think that's a very, very good sign. So I think he has the right attitude. He's moved to a very good place and a very good gym. And he's an unbelievable athlete as well. And yeah, I think he'll be in the top 5.
No, nicely done. And yes, that's something we've talked about on the broadcast. He has the right mindset. And I think from a matchmaking standpoint, they're doing the right thing. So, all right, so, and I could have said buy or sell, Ian Gary will fight for the UFC title or be the UFC champion. I went top 5, right? I was trying to sort of do the diplomatic thing. All right.
I appreciate it.
Over under 2.5 more career UFC fights lifetime for Conor McGregor. And I think this question, right, I almost shoved it up to 3.5 when you sort of mentioned this Chandler fight versus a Ferguson fight. You know, I do think Conor McGregor may play the long game, but I set the total at 2.5. Over under 2.5 more UFC fights for Conor McGregor.
I'm going to go over because I think it'll go well, this 6 months thing. I think he'll beat Chandler and he'll definitely have one more, and that'll be 2. And then he'll surely have another one somewhere. Yeah, so I'll go with the over.
All right. Quick thought on Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman. Right now, Kamaru Usman minus 245, Leon Edwards plus 205 for this trilogy matchup coming up at UFC 286. Gilbert Burns has said because of the altitude, that won't be the factor it was in Salt Lake City, Utah. He likes Leon Edwards in this third meeting. Any early lean from you on that fight?
I think the mindset of Kamaru Usman is the most interesting thing here. I remember I talked to Michael Bisping before the third McGregor-Poirier fight. It was the first time McGregor was ever knocked out. I remember mentioning to him about like the Hindo fight where he was obviously knocked out very heavily, and like, how do you come back from that mindset-wise? And he kind of told me after his next fight, he was standing there backstage and he was like thinking, am I going to get sparked again like I did the last time? And Usman is going to be thinking the same thing. It's only natural, but how is that going to affect him? Like if Usman comes in and he approaches the fight the exact same way, fights the exact same way, I think he'll win. Because he was winning that fight. He was the better man throughout that fight, and Leon Edwards landed a spectacular knockout. If he doesn't, if the mindset's a little bit off, if he's 1% off in terms of his, I suppose his confidence in doing things throughout the fight, that's going to be massive, because Leon Edwards is a very, very good fighter, and his confidence will probably have exploded from that and gone up and up and up.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big one for mindset, because it's very hard. It's an intangible. You know, you get for the people outside of it, the fighters and the coaches and stuff, obviously can understand it and see it. But that for me is a massive thing here, and I'm unsure how we'll actually deal with that.
And I don't think I've ever met a fighter who's been knocked out and their chin has been better after the fact.
Yeah.
That's true.
So, Seán, before we let you go, to what extent is the NFL Super Bowl on your radar? Will you watch that or no?
I will. Yeah, I always watched. I always watch the Super Bowl. I watched a couple of games this year, but it's very tough because it's Sunday for me.
Oh yeah.
And Sunday is my podcast recording day, but also the day I have like 2 hours sleep on the Saturday night, and I usually fall asleep at like 9:30 or something like that. But yeah, no, I've always watched it. I used to be a big Packers fan and watched all their games and everything like that. But in the last few years, it's been few and far between. But who's it? Mahomes and Burrow? Is that it?
There you go. Well, Burrow's out now, so Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, but you're halfway there.
Okay.
Hey, you got to prioritize. Got to prioritize.
Yeah, that's
On social media, you can find him at Seán Sheehan BA. Appreciate your insight, your intelligence as usual. And I say Boston, Massachusetts, by the way, for the Conor McGregor fight, third quarter. So we'll see if it happens in the Bean. All right, Sean, thank you, brother. I know it's a busy day for you. We appreciate the time sincerely.
lovely. Thanks for having me, lads. See you.
See you, Sean.
Love that guy. Seán Sheehan with us on the Anik and Florian podcast. And nice to get through 20 minutes with him and not ask a judging or scoring question, because obviously he is my foremost resource when it comes to that stuff. But thankfully didn't have to go in that direction today. All right. Thank you all for watching the show. We are live from Perth, Australia on ESPN Plus pay-per-view coming up this Saturday night. And then we are right back with you to recap it. Probably going to be Monday. It's a pretty long travel for me, as many of you know, but most likely Monday, February 13th, if not Valentine's Day. Full recap of UFC 284 here on the Anik and Florian podcast. Thanks to Brian Petrie. Thank you, of course, to Seán Sheehan, our executive producer, Cody Merrow, and the great Kenny Florian. Tell your friends, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching and for listening. We don't take your viewership for granted. This show will never be behind a paywall. Tell your friends. Tell your mom. We'll see you next week. See you later.